Enough! Don't you dare act bigger than you are. I shut down disrespect right here, not outside. Enough! Don't try to talk above your place. I bury disrespect right here in my courtroom. Oh, please, save your courtroom threats. Your ego is louder than your judgment.
The silence in Judge Harper's courtroom, yes, this judge, known for her iron logic and surgical questioning, was unlike anything the audience had ever experienced. It wasn't peaceful. It wasn't calm. It was the kind of silence that appears right before a dam breaks, right before truth crashes down on someone who's spent too long hiding behind illusions. Ava Langston didn't notice that silence. She was too busy adjusting the sleeve of her designer blazer, then her hair, then her phone screen reflection, looking at herself like she was preparing for a red carpet interview, not a legal proceeding. Every movement she made was smooth, practiced, dripping with the privilege of someone who had never been denied anything, not permission, not attention, not power. But then something changed. Subtle at first, but unmistakable. Judge Harper closed the last page of the case file with a soft thud. And although it wasn't loud, everyone felt it like a warning shot wrapped inside a whisper. A warning Ava absolutely missed. She leaned toward her friend sitting behind her and murmured something smug under her breath. Whatever she said made the friend cover her mouth to hide a grin. Cameras caught it. The audience noticed it. Even the bailiff's eyebrows lifted, surprised she was still joking. Judge Harper, however, didn't acknowledge it. Not outwardly. Her expression stayed unreadable, but an experienced viewer would recognize the shift, the tiny lift of her chin, the measured slow blink. It was her towel. That look always meant one thing. She had already decided this wasn't going to be a normal hearing. It was going to be a reckoning. Miss Langston. Judge Harper finally said. Ava didn't look up immediately. She took her time lifting her gaze, as if the judge were asking for her autograph instead of her attention. Her posture radiated effortless entitlement. Yes, she answered, stretching the word into a bored sigh. People in the audience exchanged glances. They knew that tone was a mistake. Even the cameraman slightly lowered his camera, as if preparing for the verbal explosion that was surely seconds away. Judge Harper didn't explode. Not yet. Before we begin, she said, I want to remind you that this courtroom is a place for facts, respect, and truth, not performance. Ava smirked. I'm aware. Her voice carried the confidence of someone who believed consequences were for other people. Judge Harper looked at her for a long moment, longer than anyone expected. Not coldly, not angrily, almost analytically, as if she were staring through Ava instead of at her. Then the judge asked the question that would become the clip heard around the internet. Miss Langston, do you think you're here today because of a misunderstanding or because of a mistake you don't want to admit? The audience leaned forward. Ava blinked, confused by what she perceived as an overly philosophical question. Neither, she said confidently. I'm here because this whole thing is ridiculous. My father is literally the person who proposes half the regulations you enforce in this courthouse. This shouldn't even be a case. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom, a sound like a spark hitting gasoline. Even the bailiff, a stone-faced veteran who rarely reacted to anything, visibly inhaled through his teeth. Ava didn't notice. She was too busy sitting back like she just dropped the mic. Judge Harper didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't even blink. She simply paused, almost gracefully, her expression turning so calm it sent a chill down the audience's spines. Your father's position, she said slowly, does not give you special privileges here? Ava shrugged. It usually does. The room erupted with murmurs. Judge Harper raised her palm once, bringing the entire courtroom back to silence instantly. Calm silence. Dangerous silence. Miss Langston, she said again, voice lowering just slightly. You seem to believe that the laws your father helps write do not apply to you. Ava pressed her tongue against her cheek, annoyed. No offense, Your Honor, but I don't really see why we're wasting time. I barely tapped her car. She's being dramatic. A voice from the plaintiff's side finally rose, soft, controlled, but trembling with righteous frustration. That's not what happened, the plaintiff. Mia Torres said. Iva scoffed so loudly it echoed. Oh, here we go, she muttered. Judge Harper's head turned sharply. Ava, she said, dropping the formality with precision that froze the room. You will address the plaintiff with respect. Is that understood? Ava's face twitched. For the first time, annoyance cracked her performance-like smile. Fine, she groaned. Judge Harper continued. Now, Miss Torres, please describe in your own words what occurred on the day in question. Mia nodded, her hands shaking slightly as she held her folder. She wasn't wealthy. She wasn't powerful. She wasn't protected by titles. She was just tired, exhausted from months of dealing with something that never should have escalated this far. Your Honor, she began softly. I didn't block her in. I was parked correctly. When I came outside, I saw Ava repeatedly backing up into my bumper. Ava rolled her eyes dramatically. Judge Harper noticed. She always noticed. She hit it 3 times, Mia continued. And she laughed before driving away. Like it was funny. A pitiful chuckle escaped Ava. Oh please, Ava. Judge Harper's voice sharpened, slicing the air like a blade. You will not interrupt. The girl snapped her mouth shut instantly. For the first time, she looked rattled. Judge Harper turned back to Mia. Continue. Mia nodded. I confronted her the next day, and she said she hesitated, not out of fear, but out of disbelief that she had to say it aloud in a courtroom. She said, cry about it. Nothing will happen to me. My dad owns half this town. The audience gasped again. Judge Harper slowly shifted her gaze toward Ava. Her look wasn't angry. It was diagnostic. Dissecting. Measuring. Double quotes. Did you say that? The judge asked. Ava tilted her head. A pause. Then she shrugged. Casual, careless, untouchable. Maybe, she said. People mishear stuff all the time. A collective groan spread through the courtroom. Judge Harper placed her hands on the bench. Leaning forward slightly, Ava Langston, she said softly, you are about to learn that respect is not optional. And arrogance is not protection. Ava opened her mouth, but nothing came out, because for the first time since entering the courtroom, she realized something. Judge Harper wasn't intimidated by her father. She wasn't impressed by wealth. She wasn't moved by attitude. She saw through Ava. Saw the entitlement, saw the manipulation, saw the belief that consequences were negotiable. She was preparing to dismantle it all. Piece by piece. Word by word. And Ava had now idea that the real evidence, the part that would shatter her confidence entirely, was still waiting. In the judge's folder. It was coming. And when it came, Ava wouldn't be ready, not even close. Asterisk. The courtroom was still buzzing with whispers as everyone processed the moment. Judge Helena slammed her gavel at Amber's arrogance. But Amber? She didn't flinch. She didn't pause. She didn't seem shaken at all by the judge's authority. Instead, she leaned back in her chair, crossed one leg over the other, and smirked like the courtroom belonged to her. Maya watched her from the witness stand. A mix of hurt and confusion flickered across her face. It was clear this wasn't just a legal dispute for her. This was emotional, personal. She hugged her arms around herself, like she was trying to hold her own heart together. Judge Helena adjusted her glasses. Ms. Amber, you will watch your tone and answer the questions asked. This is not optional. Amber rolled her eyes slowly, deliberately, like she wanted the judge to see every second of her disrespect. Sure, Your Honor, ask away. Helena took a subtle breath. We'll start simple. Did you receive the deposit Maya paid you for the apartment? Amber shrugged. Yeah, so, Helena echoed. Did you return it after canceling her rental agreement? Amber's lips curled. Why should I? She backed out. She wasted my time. That money compensates me for the inconvenience. Maya's voice cracked. I didn't back out. You canceled my agreement after taking a higher offer? Amber didn't even bother looking at her. Not my fault people want what I have more than she does. A wave of soft gasps rippled through the courtroom. Judge Helena leaned forward, her voice low but sharp. Ms. Amber, this is not a negotiation table. It's a courtroom, and you will behave accordingly. Amber folded her arms. I am behaving. You're just overreacting. Asterisk, the room froze again. Helena closed her notebook very slowly, as if giving herself a moment to maintain her composure. All right, let's walk through the timeline. The clerk marked the moment. The stenographer's keys clicked rapidly. Helena continued. Maya paid you the deposit on April 12th, correct? Amber nodded. Yeah, and you texted her, confirming the move-in date? Yes. Then on April 22nd, the judge flipped a page. You messaged her saying the apartment was no longer available. Amber casually inspected her nails. Told you. Better offer, and you kept her money. Like I said, compensation. I don't work for free. Maya covered her mouth, fighting tears. Asterisk, Judge Helena's patience thinned. This isn't employment. This is a rental contract, and when you break it, you refund the deposit. That is standard legal procedure, something you clearly did not follow. Amber waved her hand. Look, I'm a very busy person. I can't keep track of all your boring rules. Helena's jaw tightened, just for a second, but enough to warn every attorney in the room to stay absolutely silent. The judge's voice dropped, deeper, firmer. Miss Amber, if you keep speaking to this court like it's beneath you, you won't like the consequences. Do I make myself clear? Amber opened her mouth, likely to deliver another sting, but her father, Senator Richard, finally stepped forward. Your Honor, he said, voice rich with political confidence, my daughter does not mean any disrespect. She simply hasn't been in many courtrooms. Helena turned her eyes toward him. Senator Richard, I am aware of your position, but this courtroom does not operate on your influence. It operates on law. If you intend to speak, it must be relevant to the case and not an attempt to soften your daughter's behavior. Richard swallowed. Maya's heart pounded as the senator stepped back, his polished confidence cracking. Amber twisted in her chair. Dad, she's blowing everything out of proportion, Amber. The senator whispered sharply. Stop talking. But Amber didn't stop. She jerked forward, glaring at the judge. You know what? Just give me the verdict. You're clearly on her side. I'm bored already. The oxygen left the room. Judge Helena slowly removed her glasses, placing them on the bench. A sign everyone in legal circles recognized. The judge had reached her limit. Her gaze hardened. You are bored, Ms. Amber, because for the first time in your life, you cannot manipulate a situation to your advantage. Amber scoffed. Oh, please, silence. The gavel hit once, quieter this time, but far more dangerous. Judge Helena turned to Maya. Ms. Maya, please explain how losing this deposit affected you. Maya inhaled shakily. I was planning to move there because it's closer to my job. I rearranged everything, and when Amber canceled, I had nowhere to go. I was staying with coworkers, sleeping on couches. It was humiliating. Her voice cracked mid-sentence. Amber smirked. That's her problem, not mine. Helena snapped her head toward her. One more disrespectful comment and I will hold you in contempt of court. Amber rolled her eyes again, but this time the bravado wavered. Maya continued. I even begged her to return my money. She left my messages unseen for days. She knew I needed it. She just didn't care. Something shifted in the room. Sympathy, silence, even the senator's shoulders slumped faintly. Judge Helena closed her folder. Your emotional distress is noted. Amber exhaled loudly, almost laughing. Emotional distress. Seriously? Drama much? That was it. Judge Helena stood. Not just sat taller, she stood. The courtroom shot up with her, as if pulled by gravity. Double quotes, Miss Amber, she said, voice echoing like thunder. This is your final warning. In my courtroom, we do not mock people who have suffered due to your dishonesty. Amber froze. Her smirk finally disappeared. For days, Helena continued, you ignored Maya, misled her, took her money, and treated her situation like entertainment. But in this courtroom, your actions have consequences. Real consequences. Amber swallowed, for the first time showing something unfamiliar on her face, uncertainty. Yet, breaking the moment, she muttered under her breath, this is stupid. The clerk gasped. Someone in the back whispered, "She's done." Judge Helena turned slowly. The entire room held its breath. "Bailiff." The bailiff stepped forward immediately. Amber blinked. "Wait, what are you doing?" "Ms. Amber," Helena said, "you are now held in contempt of court." A shocked murmur swept across the benches. Amber sat up straight. "What? For what? I didn't do anything." The senator rushed forward. "Your Honor," Helena raised her hand. "Senator, unless you wish to join her, you will remain silent." Amber's bravado collapsed. "What do you mean contempt? I was just talking." "No," Helena replied, voice controlled. "You were disrespecting, mocking, and repeatedly ignoring direct instructions from this bench." Amber's hands trembled as the bailiff moved closer. Senator Richard looked helplessly between his daughter and the judge. "Your Honor, she's young, she's impulsive, please." But Helena's eyes remained firm. "She is old enough to know right from wrong, and today she will learn the difference." Amber's mouth fell open, her confidence crashing like shattering glass. The bailiff stepped beside her chair. "Miss Amber," he said, "stand up." Amber's face went pale as the bailiff stepped closer, his shadow falling across her chair. For the first time all morning, she looked genuinely unsure, like she had been yanked out of her world of privilege and dropped into reality. "Stand up." "Miss Amber," the bailiff repeated, his tone firm but calm. Amber gripped the edges of her chair. I'm not going anywhere." "Dad, say something." Senator Richard rushed forward, desperation cracking through his polished demeanor. "Your Honor, please, she didn't mean any harm. She's just overwhelmed." Judge Helena didn't blink. Being overwhelmed does not excuse arrogance, disrespect, or contempt. Amber shot up from her chair, eyes burning. "This is insane. You can't arrest me for talking. Who even do you think you are?" That single sentence sliced through the courtroom like a blade. Helena exhaled slowly, a calm, chilling breath that made the room fall silent. "I am the judge," she said, "and you have just reminded me why this lesson is necessary." Amber's mouth opened, but no sound came out. "Bailiff," Helena commanded, "escort Miss Amber to the holding room until she is ready to behave like an adult." The bailiff stepped behind her, gently motioning. "This way, miss." Amber jerked her arm away. "Don't touch me." But the moment she stepped back, her heel caught the edge of her chair. She stumbled. Her father reached out, but it was too late. Amber grabbed the table for balance, knocking over her designer purse. Lipsticks, perfume, and a handful of crumpled receipts scattered across the floor. For the first time, she looked small, unsteady. Human asterisk whispers rippled through the benches. Is she really being taken? She brought this on herself. She thought she could bully the judge. Amber's face flushed red with anger and embarrassment. She turned on Maya like a cornered animal. "This is all your fault," she snapped. "If you weren't such a crybaby, enough." Helena's voice cracked through the room. "Miss Amber, you will not speak to the plaintiff." Amber's chest rose and fell quickly, like she was seconds from breaking down. Senator Richard slowly approached her. He placed both hands gently on her shoulders. "Amber, please, stop making this worse." She stared at him, really stared, like she was finally seeing her father's fear, not just his authority. Her voice trembled. "Dad, she can't really do this, right?" The senator swallowed. "She can, and she is." Amber blinked rapidly. But why? I didn't hurt anyone." "You disrespected the court," he whispered, "and that's enough." For the first time since the hearing began, Amber's eyes filled with tears. She wasn't angry now. She was scared. Still, Judge Helena's expression didn't soften. "Bailiff," she said quietly, "let's go." "Miss," he repeated. Amber hesitated, then finally stepped forward, but not silently. As the bailiff guided her toward the side door. Amber twisted around, shouting across the courtroom, "This is ridiculous. Do people hear her? She's humiliating me for nothing." Judge Helena slowly sat back down, her gavel resting loosely in her hand. "Miss Amber," she said, "humiliation is not your punishment. Accountability is. Something you have avoided for a very long time." Amber shook her head violently. I didn't even do anything wrong. Helena raised her eyebrow. You lied. You stole. You manipulated. And when asked simple questions, you responded with disrespect and childish mockery. Amber's lips trembled. Everyone lies sometimes. Maya's quiet voice finally broke through the chaos. Maybe, she whispered. But not everyone destroys people with those lies. Amber froze, for the first time. Maya's eyes weren't pleading or scared, they were tired. Like someone who had been stepped on too many times. Amber opened her mouth. But no words came out. The room felt heavier than before. Senator Richard ran a hand through his hair, visibly aging under the pressure of his daughter's public unraveling. He turned to Judge Helena. Your Honor, may I at least accompany her to speak with her privately? Helena shook her head. She will have time to gather herself in holding. When she is ready to return and participate respectfully, I will allow it. Amber looked betrayed. Dad, don't let them take me. Richard lowered his voice. Amber, I cannot stop them. You brought this on yourself. She stared at him like she couldn't comprehend the sentence. The bailiff opened the side door. A small, quiet holding area waited just beyond its cold walls, a cruel contrast to the luxury Amber was used to. No, Amber whispered. No, I'm not going in there. It's dirty. It's Dad, do something. Senator Richard turned away. For the first time, he couldn't protect her. She began shaking her head frantically as the bailiff gently guided her through the doorway. I'm not staying in there. I'll be good. I promise. Dad, please. Her voice grew smaller with each desperate plea. The bailiff closed the door behind them with a heavy click. The sound echoed through the courtroom like a verdict in itself. Silence fell. Maya wiped her tears quietly. Senator Richard stood in the middle of the aisle, shoulders slumped, eyes dim. The weight of public perception, parental guilt, and helplessness settled on him all at once. Asterisk Judge Helena cleared her throat, breaking the silence. We will pause for 10 minutes. When Miss Amber returns, we will continue with the case. Richard took a slow seat, burying his face in his hands. Maya watched quietly, her heart conflicted. She didn't enjoy seeing Amber suffer, but a part of her knew this was the only way Amber would ever learn, the clerk announced. 10-minute recess. Everyone stood and scattered, whispering in clusters, but nobody stopped thinking about one thing. Amber had finally met someone who could not be bought, bullied, or manipulated, and the consequences had only begun. The courtroom gradually filled again as the 10-minute recess came to an end. Attorneys returned to their tables. The clerk adjusted her files. Even the bailiff stood a little more alert than before, aware that they were dealing with someone unpredictable. Senator Richard sat alone in the front row, his elbows on his knees, fingers pressed against his forehead. His expensive suit couldn't hide how defeated he looked. Haunted by the sound of his daughter's pleas echoing in the hallway, Maya stood near the witness podium, her hands clasped tightly. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't relieved. She was simply quiet, exhausted. She had never wanted to seem like this. All she ever wanted was the money she lost and the respect she deserved. Judge Helena stepped back into the courtroom, robe flowing behind her. The entire room rose instinctively, and this time, even Senator Richard stood properly, not with political pride, but with genuine respect for the judge who had shown more control than most people could manage. Please be seated, Helena said. Everyone sat. The judge took her seat, folding her hands calmly on the bench. Bailiff, she said, is Miss Amber ready to return to the courtroom? The bailiff gave a small nod. Yes, Your Honor, she's calmer now. Bring her in. A wave of anticipation rippled through the benches. The side door opened. Amber stepped out slowly. Gone was the cocky stride. Gone was the smirk. Her hair, once perfectly curled, was now slightly frizzed from her panicked pacing. Her mascara was smudged at the edges from tears she tried to wipe away quickly. She held herself differently, smaller, humbler, like some invisible weight pressed down on her shoulders. She didn't look like the senator's spoiled daughter anymore. She looked like a girl who finally realized she wasn't Untouchable. Amber quietly walked to her seat, keeping her eyes down. The room watched her like she was a completely different person. Judge Helena gave her a moment before speaking. Ms. Amber, she began, voice steady. Are you prepared to participate respectfully from this moment forward? Amber didn't speak immediately. She swallowed, then nodded. Yes, Your Honor. Her voice was small, genuine. Helena observed her carefully. Good, I expect full cooperation. Amber nodded again. Gripping the edge of her table tightly, her father reached over and gently placed a supportive hand on her arm. Amber didn't pull away this time. She leaned into the touch, needing the grounding. Judge Helena turned to Maya. Ms. Maya, thank you for your patience. We will continue with your testimony. Maya nodded and stepped back into the witness stand. Her voice trembled, but she spoke clearly. I stayed with my coworkers for a week. I missed shifts. I had no privacy. I was stressed and embarrassed. I kept messaging Amber, but she blocked my number. Amber visibly flinched at the word blocked. Maya continued. I wasn't asking for anything extra. I just needed my deposit back. That's all. Amber looked down, guilt sinking into her features. Judge Helena shifted her gaze. Ms. Amber, do you dispute blocking her number? Amber shook her head. No, Your Honor. I did block her, and why? Amber hesitated. The judge waited. Amber whispered, because I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to admit I took the other offer. Because it was more money, Helena said for her. Amber nodded shamefully. Yes. A quiet wave of murmurs moved through the spectators. Senator Richard winced beside her. Judge Helena continued. Ms. Amber, the law is clear. When you cancel the rental agreement, you return the deposit. It does not matter if someone offered you more. Amber's eyes glassed again. I know that now. Helena studied her. Do you feel any remorse for how your actions impacted Maya? Amber's throat bobbed as she swallowed. Yes, Your Honor, I didn't think about her situation. I just thought about myself. Maya lowered her gaze, unsure how to feel. Judge Helena nodded. At least you're honest now. But then Helena leaned forward slightly, tone firming. However, remorse does not erase consequences. Amber's breath caught. Before determining the final judgment, Helena said, I need to ask you one more question. Amber tensed. Had Maya not taken you to court, would you have ever returned the deposit? Amber froze. Everyone in the room leaned in, waiting for her answer. The silence stretched on. Finally, Amber shook her head. No. Judge Helena closed her eyes for one long, controlled moment. When she opened them, her expression was resolved. Thank you for your honesty. It makes the next part easier. Amber's stomach dropped. Judge Helena continued. This court cannot ignore your behavior, the lie, the manipulation, the disrespect toward the plaintiff, and the contempt shown toward the court. Amber's hands trembled around the edges of her table. Maya watched quietly. Her emotions twisted between justice and sadness. As Helena flipped a page on her bench. The courtroom held its breath. Senator Richard shifted nervously. Knowing this judge wasn't swayed by influence or titles. Helena finally spoke. Ms. Amber, based on the evidence presented, the contract, and your own admission, Amber's breath hitched. You are required to return Maya's full deposit of $1,200. Amber closed her eyes. Relieved it wasn't worse, but the judge wasn't finished. Additionally, Helena added, you will pay $800 in damages for the distress and unnecessary hardship you caused. Amber's eyes flew open. What? She immediately covered her mouth, realizing she'd spoken out of turn. Judge Helena didn't react to that slip. She simply continued. Furthermore, you will write a formal apology to Maya, acknowledging the harm your actions caused. This is not optional. Maya looked shocked. Senator Richard looked devastated. Amber looked like her entire world tilted sideways, but Helena wasn't done. And finally, Amber sat up straight. Due to your repeated disrespect toward this courtroom, you will perform 20 hours of community service, assigned by the court. A collective gasp filled the room. Amber's jaw dropped. Community service? But I have events, and Judge Helena raised a finger. Not another word. Amber shrank back. Maya stared, stunned. She hadn't expected this much accountability, not from someone like Amber. Judge. Helena closed her folder calmly. The court finds in favor of the plaintiff. Amber inhaled sharply. Like she'd been punched. Maya exhaled, tears of relief slipping down her cheeks. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs. People whispering about how justice finally caught up with someone who thought she was above it. Amber sat motionless, stunned, speechless. The reality of consequences sinking in for the first time in her life. Senator Richard placed a hand on her back. Amber. It's over, he murmured. Amber didn't respond. Her eyes weren't angry anymore, just broken, quiet, changed. And that's when Judge Helena spoke again. Before we dismiss, Ms. Amber, do you have anything you want to say to Maya? Amber slowly stood up, trembling, her voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry. Amber stood there trembling, her apology hanging in the air like a fragile thread. It wasn't loud. It wasn't confident. It wasn't polished. It was real. Maya blinked, tears already collecting in her lashes. She didn't gloat. She didn't smirk. She simply stared at the girl who had caused her so much pain. A girl who now looked nothing like the entitled person who strutted into the courtroom that morning. Judge Helena nodded once. Thank you, Ms. Amber. Sit down. Amber lowered herself slowly, almost mechanically. She sank into her chair as though her body couldn't fully support the weight of everything she'd been forced to carry in the last hour. Truth, responsibility, consequences. The courtroom fell silent again. Even the air felt heavier. Judge Helena gathered her papers, but instead of closing the case immediately, she paused. Her gaze drifted from Maya to Amber, then to Senator Richard. And finally, she spoke. Let this be a lesson, she said quietly. That status does not grant immunity. An entitlement is not a shield against accountability. The senator lowered his head, accepting the truth behind her words. Court dismissed. Her gavel struck, a sharp, final echo. The spell broke. People rose, whispering to each other as they filed out, some stunned by the outcome, some impressed by the judge's restraint, others simply relieved that justice had finally touched someone who'd never known it. The bailiff opened the gate, allowing Maya to step down from the stand. She walked slowly, almost unsteady, processing everything. She wasn't used to winning. She wasn't used to being heard. For her, today wasn't just about money. It was about finally mattering. Amber also stood, though she moved like someone learning to walk after a fall. Her eyes darted around the room, unsure where to go, what to say, or how to act now that her perfect image had been shattered. Senator Richard placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. Let's go. Amber, but she didn't move. Instead, she turned to Maya, truly turned to face her. Maya hesitated. She wasn't sure what to expect. Another insult? Another outburst? But Amber only whispered, voice raw, "Can I talk to you?" Maya looked at the judge, as if for permission. Helena gave a single nod, then began sorting her files, giving the girls a private moment. Amber stepped closer, her expensive heels clicking softly on the polished floor. Her eyes were red. Her hands shook. Her confidence was gone. I meant what I said, she murmured. I'm sorry. Not because the judge told me to, but because I really didn't think about you. I just thought the world revolved around me. Maya swallowed. I just wanted what was fair. I know. Amber nodded slowly. And I took advantage of that. Of you. A beat of silence passed. Maya stared at her, not with anger, but with something more human. Are you going to do the apology letter? Maya asked quietly. Amber almost smiled, but it came out sad instead. Yes. And for once, I'll write something that isn't fake. Maya nodded. She appreciated that more than she expected. Senator Richard approached them, his voice soft. Maya, thank you for being patient today. And I'm sorry you got caught in the middle of my daughter's mistakes. Maya shook her head. It wasn't your fault, sir. The senator glanced at Amber, his features tightening. No, it was mine. I let her grow up thinking she could talk her way out of anything. He sighed. Today showed me what that created. Amber winced, but Maya simply replied, Today showed her too. Amber looked away. Ashamed at Judge Helena approached them from behind. Having finished her paperwork, Miss Maya, she said kindly, You handled yourself with dignity today. You should be proud. Maya smiled softly. Thank you, Your Honor. And Miss Amber, Helena added, her tone shifting to firm but not hostile, use this moment. Grow from it. Learn from it. Not everyone gets a chance to correct who they're becoming. Amber nodded slowly. I will. Helena gave one last look, the kind that carried wisdom, not judgment. Before stepping away, the courtroom emptied gradually, leaving only the three of them. Maya picked up her bag, preparing to leave, but Amber's voice stopped her one last time. Wait. Maya turned. Amber looked deeply unsure of herself. I know you'll probably never want to talk to me again, and that's okay. But I just want you to know something. Maya waited. Amber took a shaky breath. You showed me something today. Something I didn't expect. You showed me that people like you, people who don't fight dirty, people who don't have power or status, still win when they stand up for themselves. Maya's eyes welled up with quiet emotion. I didn't win to teach you, she whispered. I just won because it was right. Amber's voice cracked. And that's exactly why I needed to lose. For a moment, the two girls simply looked at each other, not as enemies, not as opposites, but as two people who lived two very different lives until this courtroom forced their worlds to collide. Maya stepped back. Goodbye. Amber, she said softly. Amber whispered back. Goodbye, Maya. And with that, Maya walked out of the courtroom, not as someone who had been wronged, but as someone who finally received justice. Amber stood still, watching her leave. Not with anger, not with envy, but with the quiet understanding that her life would have to change now. Senator Richard placed a supportive arm around her shoulders. Come on, he said gently. Let's go home. Amber exhaled shakily, nodding. Together, they walked out of the courtroom, not triumphantly, but honestly. Humbled, human. And for the first time in her life, Amber understood that consequences weren't punishments, they were turning points.